Hello and welcome to the 30k channel. I'm your host David Brains and we've been joined today by Sullivan Elliott. Good morning, Sullivan.
Good morning, hello.
Are you well?
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Sullivan has put some amazing effort this morning and he's come all the way from Maidstone.
Maidstone, yes.
Yeah, so good on you. So what, a couple of hours, 2.5 hours?
2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours, not too long.
So he's put some really great effort in today to bring his Sons of Horus. So thank you so much for your efforts.
That's okay.
Really appreciate it. Now we've got a bit of a game for you today. Sullivan, you have got a extremely scary list.
Thank you. Yes, it's a lot of Alpha Strike, getting in your face, and absolutely annihilating the enemy.
Ooh, it's tough. We've got Horus, the man himself.
Yep, the big daddy-o.
Leading 2 10-man units of Justarin.
He's got to have his bodyguards to protect him.
Oof. Supported by a Spartan, a Leviathan, and a las cannon team.
Yeah.
Like,
few support here and there just to make things good.
Yeah, it is tough. And as you can see, you know, the poor Mechanicum have just brought 46 of their
little robots
to defend. God, I think it's going to be quite tough.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good game, I can tell.
Yeah, I reckon so. It's a really interesting game as well because there's a couple of parallels we can draw here. You know, the colour palette between the two armies is very, very similar. I've gone for a silver and red with a kind of a blue OSL, and yours, Sullivan, is very similar. You're black, red.
Nice contrast between the two colours.
Yeah,
it really stands out. The
main difference between the two forces, I guess, is obviously Mechanicum Sons of Horus, but it's the outline shape of the Justarin plate against the kind of the bulky 3-wound Thalax. So it's going to be quite an interesting list.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to it.
And an interesting game, but yeah. I don't know what else to say. I am frightened. Horus is an absolute beast. There is an argument for saying, you know, you all know I've got a load of tanks. But my concern about this game was that if the tanks are, if Horus is dropping down with his Justarin, that I think the Strength 9 AP2 tank can pick off the.
There is that chance, yeah, they could wipe out that unit.
Yeah, so I made the decision this morning to go with 45 Thalax for the win.
Yeah,
we'll see.
We'll see.
I brought some multi-melters, which might help.
It might give you the edge. We'll just have to see.
But for those of you that know when I play, my rolls are appalling. I tend to miss multi-melter shots and photon thruster shots.
Oh, okay.
2s to wound, I roll lots of 1s. I get a lot of get hot.
Right, that's not good.
It's
not good.
It's not good at all. Not good. The mission, though, we've gone for a really unique mission, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
We've gone for that one that nobody likes. We've gone for the ambush deployment. You know, that big circle in the middle with the two, I think they're 12 inches on each side.
Yeah, it's almost like Battle of Istvan 3, where you've got the loyalists in the middle and the traitors coming round to encircle them. So it's similar in that sense.
And we thought it made perfect sense for the Sons of Horus. You know, they're an absolutely tactical genius army, aren't they?
Yeah.
You've got the top man himself.
Yeah, he's leading the charge, making sure that everything goes A-OK.
Yeah. What's your sort of, we should also mention as well, excuse me, I've forgotten, we should mention the mission. We're playing Tide of Carnage. Now, it is going to be a little bit tricky because we've got the circle, we've got the 12-inch line, so at the end of the game, it's going to be a little bit tricky to work out who's in what deployment, but I think we'll manage it. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, we should be all right. It should be fine.
But it'll be really interesting because I've got, the Mechanicum have got 4 scoring units, and you've got 1, 2, 3 with the Spartan because the vehicles are scoring. So I think it'll be I think it's going to be a very hard fought game.
Yeah, a lot of clashing heads.
Yes. My plan will absolutely to be stay away from those units. They're either going to come out with Spartan or they're going to deep strike with Horus, and I need to stay away from them as much as possible. And the Thalax have the ability to do that because they've all got jetpacks. Sullivan, what's your rough plan? And don't give it away too much.
No, I won't spoil it. The rough plan is to try and get the bigger units, such as the Leviathan, in first turn.
Yeah.
Act as that sort of stopping force for that first turn. And then gradually escalate as I keep going with the turns, making sure that everything is working in synergy.
Yeah.
that the forces are working well with each other, and there's a bit of back and forth in my army. No one's going lone wolf in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess Horus is going to be attached to that 10-man unit, and they're deep striking, I would have thought.
Yes, he's going to be deep striking. He's going to be trying to make sure he doesn't get riddled with bullets.
Yes.
Because he does need to lead the armies forward to take terror.
Yeah.
And they've got to keep him alive for that. But yeah, no, it's going to be, everything's going to work together.
Yeah, it's one of those lists, really. Horus has got an amazing rule where he doesn't scatter when he comes down. Do you still roll reserved for him?
You roll on turn 2.
Okay, yeah. So
but on turn 1 you can just come in.
Okay.
We can always double check that.
We'll double check that. But then, no matter what, that levy is coming down first turn in that drop pod.
Yeah.
The key tactic for the Mechanicum in this game will be to focus fire on units. I might get countercharged and lose a unit, but it's using the full effect of the army to take down a unit a turn, and that's what my plan will be. Because if the Sons of Horus get to any one of my units, they are dead.
Yeah.
Absolutely dead.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a bit of a game of cat and mouse and focus fire. With the Justarian plate, you've got the ability to weather the storm. You've got long range firepower from those las cannons.
Yeah, I've got a lot that can take it and dish it.
Yeah, the one thing I am thankful for is the toughness 5 of the Thalax, because there's no weapon in your army that will insta kill me other than the Levy and Horus.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a hard fought game.
Yeah,
I'm going to give you a run for your money, I think.
Thank you.
We'll try. It's going to be a really interesting game. It's going to be tough. There's no doubt about that. But hopefully it will be entertaining. We are going to dig into these lists, find out what Sullivan's brought, and then we'll see at the beginning of turn 1. 3,000 points of Mechanicum Tagmata, led by an Arch Magos Prime. Warlord trait is Dread Rights. Leading the Mechanicum is an Arch Magos Prime. He has been upgraded to have the Myrmidax special rule. He's equipped with a jetpack, 2 melter guns, one of which is mastercrafted. He has the Jin Skyne ability. He has a Cyber Familiar and 2 Cyber Ocularis. The first and second troops choice are a 9 Thalax cohort, armed identically. There are 9 Thalax, 3 multi-melters. They're all equipped with melter bombs, heavy chain blades, and have been upgraded to take the Destructor ability. Troops choice 3, 4, and 5 consist of 9 Thalax in 3 different squads. They are all equipped with melter bombs, heavy chain blades, and Destructor, and they also include 3 photon thrusters in each squad.
3,000 points of Sons of Horus, led by Horus himself. The Rite of War is Pride of the Legion, and I'm going to absolutely smash in this game. HQ for the Sons of Horus is a Praetor with Artificial Armour, Bolt Pistol, and Chainsword and Combat Blades. We have a Primus Medicate with Combi Bolter. He is equipped with Cataphracti Pattern Terminate Armour. He is a Primus Medicate, and he has a Power Maul. Lastly, there is a Siege Breaker with Artificial Armour, Bolt Pistol, Chainsword. Horus allows the first unit of Justarian to be Troops Choice, and in that Troops Choice we have a 10-man Justarian. They are specialised to be anti-tank, so they are equipped with 3 Power Fists, 2 Multi-Melters, 5 Chain Fists. The second Troops Choice is specialised in anti-infantry. It is a 10-man Justarian Terminators, 3 with Lightning Claws, 5 pair of Lightning Claws, a Power Fist, and 2 Reaper Autocannons. As part of the heavy support, I've chosen to take a 6-man las cannon team. The Sergeant is armed with an augury scanner, and he is also armed with a las cannon. As another part of the heavy support that I've chosen, I've taken a Spartan assault tank. It has got a flare shield, and I'll also be running the anti-tank squad in there. The final heavy support choice is a Leviathan Siege Dreadnought. He is equipped with a heavy flamer and another heavy flamer. With his melee weapons that he's holding, he's got a Siege Claw, and a siege drill. He will be deep striking in a drop pod. Leading the force of the Sons of Horus is Horus the War Master, Horus Lupercal, the Breaker of Tyrants, the Favoured Son, the Eye of Terror.
That's it. Mechanicum, Sons of Horus have deployed. Sullivan, there is not a lot of Sons of Horus on the board.
No, there isn't, but we're waiting for the main force to come.
Yeah, let's not forget, the Sons of Horus have got in reserve a Spartan full of Justerin, Horus and his Justerin. And don't forget, turn 1, we're going to see that Leviathan drop down as Dreadnought drop pod.
Yeah, that's coming in.
It's a tough old unit to deal with.
It is a brick wall that you've got to get through.
We've seen Leviathans on the channel before. They either die to a one-shot or they just survive to the end of the game and they just go through anything. So quite a tough unit to come in. The Mechanicum have deployed right in the centre. Very defensive. I could have spread out a little bit, but I want to try and keep some distance to those units coming in on the board. And I've also kept a unit in reserve as well, unit with multi-melters. I can either deep strike them, or I can use the Cybocularis so they don't scatter, or I can come on the long table edges. But it will be very much to react to what the Sons of Horus do. Now, of course, I say of course, you won the roll-off to deploy first, go first.
I did.
You made me go first.
Yes.
Absolutely makes sense. Because Horus has a 4-up siege.
He does. He gives me that ability, which is lovely.
Such an amazing ability. It's so valuable.
Yeah.
Generally, though, I do like the last turn, which gives you that little bit more flexibility, but I'm not too sure at the moment. I'm going to wish you a good game.
Wish you too.
Good luck to you. Let's see what we get. It's a 3. Mechanicum will go first, although there's not many targets for me to look at.
No, there isn't.
Okay, let's go on to Mechanicum turn 1. Mechanicum turn 1 movement. Not a huge amount of movement for the Mechanicum. This squad over here in the landing pad have moved forward 6 inches just so they can bring their weapons to bear on this las cannon team from the Sons of Horus. This unit here with the photon thruster has moved out and they will draw a line of sight with their 3 photon thrusters into the las cannon team. Same as the unit behind them with the attached Magos, and then the 4th and final unit on the far edge there have just shuffled around. We're trying to mitigate that orbital bombardment from Horus and trying to preempt where the Sons of Horus are going to come in. The 2 little Cybocularis have moved forward, so we're going to pass possible ballistic skill onto this unit with the photon thruster, and that one over there is in position ready for his thrust move in the assault phase, where he will go and bolster that unit there. So a little bit of movement. It's very cautious. This is the worst deployment for B, right in the centre in the ambush scenario. But our plan in the shooting phase is to wipe out that las cannon team from the Sons of Horus. So fingers crossed. Mechanicum, turn 1 shooting phase. The Thalax, armed with a photon thruster right at the front of the screen there, shot his photon thruster. Got 1 hit, 1 got hot, which he passed his armor save, which was great. The shot went through and killed 1 of the las cannon team. The whole army on this side only had line of sight to 1 of those Sons of Horus. So we've killed the one we can see. It's now left to the 3 multi-melters in this squad to make an impact on this unit here. Despite the photon thruster hitting the unit and causing them to make a blind check, they passed successfully. The start of the Mechanicum shooting has taken a decline. I knew it was going to happen. It was only a matter of time. The 3 multi-melters from this Thalax squad opened up into the Sons of Horus las cannon teams. Got 2 1s on the to hit roll, which was terrible. So only 1 shot hit. The 3rd shot, which did hit, rolled a 1 to wound, so that squad is absolutely fine. On the whole, a pretty poor opening phase from the Mechanicum. The only thing left to do now is to do their thrust move in the assault phase. Mechanicum, turn 1 assault phase. Just a few thrust moves. My average roll for them was around 4 to 6. So all that the Mechanicum have done have just slightly spread out. We're worried about the orbital bombardment, and we're worried about a deep striking Leviathan. We've pretty much stayed compact. The only role that I was really disappointed in was that little Cyber Ocularis there by those silos. I really wanted at least a 4 or a 5 to get over to join that unit to bolster them in the next turn, but it didn't happen. I rolled a 2, I think, which was, again, was pretty terrible. Would have liked to have done a bit more damage to that last cannon team. No doubt I'm going to be receiving some damage in the ensuing phase.
Sons of Horus, turn 1 movement. The Leviathan is deep strike down. It's looking at the phalanx to engage. The last cannon team are currently stationary there, willing to shoot at the phalanx as well. Sons of Horus, turn 1 shooting. The Leviathan opened up with its flamers. It hit the phalanx unit, causing 6 hits, 6 wounds, and 1 dead. Leviathan has opened up with its 2 melter guns in its hands. It has tried to shoot and tried to hit and tried to win, but it failed. The las cannon team have opened up on a group of phalanx, causing 5 hits, 5 wounds, and 1 has died, but 1 leaving with 1 wound. Okay. End of turn 1 for the Sons of Horus. The Mechanicum have taken a few casualties. We'll see what the Mechanicum bring in next turn.
Mechanicum, turn 2 movement. A little bit of luck, which was great. The final Phalanx unit have come in via deep strike. We used the Cyber Ocularis there, so they deep struck dead on target. They didn't scatter, which was brilliant. They've landed there to help out that Leviathan with the multi-melters, or they will redirect and go against the las cannon team round this side. I'm hoping, though, that this unit here, with the 3 multi-melters and all the lightning guns, will go into the Leviathan and do some serious damage. They do have Tank Hunter, thanks to their special rule of Destructor. If we don't do that in the shooting phase, we will then charge it. They have Melter Bombs. We will probably lose 3 in combat with the Leviathan striking initiative, but then the rest of the squad should do it. So fingers crossed we can get rid of the Levy and the las cannon team. The 3 units, including the Majos, have just plugged that gap. The last thing we need is for a Spartan to get to us quickly in the next couple of turns and for Horus to deep strike right in the centre of the Mechanicum lines. So we've just closed a few gaps, moved all the special weapons more or less into the centre, so we've got some ablative wounds from the non-special weapon armed Phalanx, and we will brace for Sons of Horus turn 2. Mechanicum, turn 2 shooting. The Phalanx unit in front of the Leviathan opened up with 3 multi-melters, only 2 hit, but they did manage to cause 2 penetrating results, needing the Destructor special roll from their unit entry to get those penetrating hits, as the initial roll was absolutely terrible. Like I said, they scored 2 penetrating hits, one of which was saved on the invulnerable save of the Leviathan. The shot went in and caused a stunned result, but because of the extra armour, it was down to a shaken. So shaken and 1 hull point. The 4 lightning guns then shot into the Leviathan, causing 4 hits and 2 glancing hits, which was brilliant. Sullivan passed 1, failed 1, and so that's a 2nd hull point on that Leviathan. Next to fire was this unit of Phalanx. They could draw 2 photon thrusters onto the las cannon team. Both of the weapons got hot, which was just brilliant. 1 did take a wound, 1 was saved, but the 2 shots that went in managed to kill 2 of the las cannon team, reducing that squad further, which was a really great result. The rest of the Phalanx are unable to draw a line of sight from any of the photon thruster weapons in the army, so that pretty much finishes the photon thruster fire from the Phalanx. The blind check was passed by the Sons of Horus las cannon team because of the photon thruster causes blind, and then the leadership test was passed also. The final thing left to do in the shooting phase is to shoot this unit into the Leviathan. It would be really great to take it out because I do not want to assault it with those Thalax. A little bit of luck from this unit that have deep struck. The 3 melter guns and the lightning guns shot into the Leviathan. Out of all those shots though, the Thalax only managed to cause 4 glancing hits against the Leviathan, but luckily the Leviathan failed its invulnerable save a couple of times, and that was enough to take the final 2 hull points off that Leviathan. That, for the Thalax, is a fantastic result because that Leviathan was going to cause them lots and lots of issues. We've created a little bit of breathing space. Really pleased with that. The next thing to do is the thrust moves. Mechanicum turn 2 assault phase. Some really great thrust moves from the Thalax here. The unit that deep struck rolled a massive 11 inches and they spread out quite a bit, but with a mind to take out that las cannon team in the next turn. Those multi-melters will be crucial in insta-killing the characters in that unit. The Thalax in front of the Leviathan also moved 10 inches, which was really good just to spread that unit out. This unit here rolled 6 on their thrust move. What we're trying to do now is we're just trying to get board control and just force the Sons of Horus to make some decisions about where they're going. My plan later would be to scatter the forces to the 4 corners of the board to score victory points for no man's land and deployment zones. The Magos and his unit have just spread out, and this unit here rolled a massive 11 inches on their thrust move, and they are moving through that compound there to get onto the other side of the board. We might be able to slow the Sons of Horus down should their Spartan come on that side.
Sons of Horus, turn 2 reserves. The Justarian have arrived from outflank. They were in the Spartan, but they've jumped out, and now they're soon to engage the enemy that are in the compound. Horus has deep striked from his battle barge. He's come down, and he is going to engage the enemy that is in front of him. He will wreck face with his mace. The las cannon team are stationary, looking for opportune targets to shoot at. They have an enemy models that are in front that they will likely shoot at and annihilate. Sons of Horus, turn 2 shooting. With the combined shooting of the combi bolters, las cannons, 2 multi-melters and the heavy bolter from the Spartan, managed to kill 1 Thalax. Horus and his group of Justarian have had a blazing shooting round, and they have killed 1 Thalax and reduced 1 Thalax to 1 wound. The las cannon team have fired at the Thalax, causing 2 wounds. Sons of Horus, end of turn 2. Horus has started the pincer movement. He is working alongside the Justarian to try and squash the Thalax that are in the centre.
Mechanicum turn 3 movement. Now that the Sons of Horus are all on the board, it allows Mechanicum to make some decisions about what to do. This unit has moved forward in the safety of that compound to start targeting those Justarian. If we can kill a couple in this turn, that will be absolutely fantastic. The Magos rather, and his unit have moved up to the compound. They are going to reinforce that Thalax unit in the compound. The 3 remaining Thalax units have moved into position. Their plan will be to pour as much firepower into those Justarian as possible, and then hopefully getting a good thrust move to move away from Horus and his retinue. There is no doubt that unit is extremely tough, but the Thalax are confident that they can keep Horus at arm's length. Fingers crossed for some great shooting. Mechanicum turn 3 shooting. The Thalax on top of the hill started the round firing at the Sons of Horus in front of them. The lightning guns were fairly good. Out of 5 hits, got 3 wounds, but the armour was saved by the Justarian and let 2 up. The photon thrusters then fired with 6 shots. 1 got hot, causing a wound on the Thalax, but got 5 hits and 4 wounds. But the invulnerable save was made, bar a couple, but the Primus Medicae managed to save 1 that got through. So 1 Justarian took 1 wound. The plucky Thalax, armed with his photon thruster in the Magos' unit, fired through the fortifications into the Sons of Horus Justarian Terminators. 2 hits, 2 wounds. Took the final wound off the Justarian up front, killing him. And then the Justarian behind him failed his feel no pain from the Primus Medicae and took a wound. That was reasonably successful. The Thalax unit at the back fired 2 lightning guns and 4 photon thruster shots into Horus's unit and his Justarin. One of the photon thrusters got hot and caused a wound on the Thalax, but all the Thalax could manage was one wound on that lead Justarin. That is going to be an absolutely tough unit to shift. The Thalax directly in front of Horus opened up with 2 multi-melters and 6 lightning guns, but all they could do was cause one wound, killing the Justarin that had a wound on him already. That was really, really bad. The Thalax on top of that building there in the compound area fired 3 multi-melters and 5 lightning guns into the Justarin, but only managed to cause one wound. That was terrible. Sullivan made some amazing 4-up invulnerable saves on those multi-melters where they needed it most. The only thing left to do now is, in the assault phase, the thrust moves need to be really high to get them out of harm's way. End of turn 3 for the Mechanicum. Some amazing rolls on the thrust move that's really made up for the poor round of shooting. Pretty much every single unit moved 10 inches on the thrust move, bar a couple. So we'll just review those very quickly. This unit moved 10 inches way away from Horus and those Justarin. The unit that were directly in front of Horus have moved back 10 inches as well. The unit behind them managed to get a huge 11 inches. The Magos and his unit moved 11, which was brilliant. And then finally, over on the far end here, this cohort of Thalax rolled the double 6 and moved 12 inches out of that complex. The most crucial thing to the Thalax's game plan is to stay away from those Justarin, because as soon as they reach them, they are absolute mincemeat. So we need to stay away quite dramatically and use those the jetpacks and their thrust moves to stay away. Hopefully, the Thalax have done enough, but we shall see what the Sons of Horus have got.
The Sons of Horus, turn 3, movement. The Justarin have gone into the Spartan. The Spartan has moved up 12. The Justarin are going to try and get into combat with the Thalax. The Praetor has detached from the Las Cannon squad. He's going to try and join up with the Justarin. The Las Cannon team have also moved to try and get a better field of shooting. Horus, along with his Justarin, have moved up. They're going to try and get into combat with the units on the right, the Thalax. They are going to see if they can smash them into little bits. Sons of Horus, turn 3, shooting. The Spartan has gone flat out to try and get closer to the Thalax. The Las Cannon team have snapshot because their weapons are heavy and they moved. They tried to shoot the Thalax but missed and failed. The Praetor had ran 2 inches towards the Justarin to try and catch up. He will try and join them next turn. Horus and the rest of his squad that he's joined the Justarin have opted not to shoot because they want to charge the Cyber Ocularis and gain more footing. Sons of Horus, turn 3, assault. Horus and his Justarin had charged into the Cyber Ocularis. They had won the combat, annihilating that robot. They had now got a 6-inch consolidation, which is going towards the main body of force of the Thalax. The Sons of Horus have realised that the Thalax are fast on their feet. They're going to try and catch up and make sure that they turn them into nuts and bolts.
Mechanicum, turn 4, movement phase. Remembering the mission, we're playing Tide of Carnage. The Thalax need to make some advances away from the Justarin, but to get into deployment zones as much as possible. To that end, this Thalax unit have moved away from the Justarin that's in front of them. They will fire everything they've got and eventually move around this generator to try and claim this objective and take out that unit there, thus either scoring or denying it from the Sons of Horus. The unit behind them will pile all of their firepower again into the Justarin unit. All we're trying to do is just kill a few Justarin, which increases their distance so they can't charge any of the Thalax units. The unit behind has come out on top of the crates and they will either fire into the Las Cannon team to make this deployment zone easier to capture, or they will fire into the back of the Justarin. We shall see. The unit with the Magos have moved forward 5 inches into that deployment zone, into the compound there, and they will fire their photon thrusters downrange into those las cannon teams from the Sons of Horus, making that end a little bit easier. We're just trying to score 7 points. If we can do 7 points, we will win this game. The Phalanx unit in front of the Spartan have decided to throw caution into the wind, and they will assault and hopefully destroy that Spartan. There is no doubt that the Justarian will get out and assault that unit, but it will keep them occupied for a turn, and hopefully that will give the Phalanx enough time to come over and capture this deployment zone in the end. They might not be able to score it because the Justarian will be there, but at least they won't destroy them. So there's lots of ifs and buts. Let's see if the Mechanicum can pull it off. Mechanicum, turn 4 shooting phase. Didn't start very well, which was a bit of a shame. The 6 photon thrusters in that compound fired down into the Sons of Horus las cannon team. Now, out of those 6 shots, only 2 hit, but the 2 that did hit managed to kill 2 las cannons. You know, it was a real shame because I could have wiped that squad out, but it just didn't happen. They passed their blind check due to the photon thruster shooting at them, and they passed their leadership test. At least it reduces the firepower coming back at the Mechanicum and helps that unit that will inevitably swing round and hopefully capture this deployment zone. This Phalanx unit fired 5 lightning guns into the Justarian with Horus. Amazingly, all 5 hit and all 5 wounded, and that was enough to kill one of the Justarian. The 3 photon thrusters from the same unit as the lightning guns that just fired opened up with 6 photon thruster shots, 5 hit, 4 wounded, and it was enough to kill 1 Justarian and put another one on 1 wound. So a really great opening round there from that Phalanx unit. This unit, bolstered by the Cybocularis next to them, fired 6 lightning gun shots into the Justarian, got 6 hits thanks to hitting on 2s, 6 wounds, and it was enough to take 1 wound off the Justarian that had already taken a wound, killing him. So really starting to whittle that squad down now. The 2 remaining multi-melters then fired into the same unit. Only 1 hit, but it wounded. But again, Sullivan made an amazing 4-up invulnerable. Lastly, on this side of the board, the lightning guns fired into the Justarian and managed to get 2 wounds through and kill a Justarian, which was brilliant news. The 3 multi-melters then fired only 1 hit, unbelievably, and it did wound, but again, Sullivan made his 4-up invulnerables. After the dust has settled on this side of the board, Horus and his unit had to take a blind check for being shot by a photon thruster, and they failed. So they will be ballistic skill 1 and weapon skill 1 in the next turn. The Phalanx in front of the Spartan fired their lightning guns into the front of it. It is flare shielded, but they can still cause a glancing hit if they rolled a 6 to penetrate, and then on the further D3, because they are rending, they needed a 5 or 6. Unfortunately, no 5 or 6s were rolled, and now they will have to take it out in the assault phase with their melter bombs. Mechanicum, turn 4 assault phase. Unbelievably, the Phalanx unit rolled a double 1 on their charge, but thankfully they were only an inch away from it. The Phalanx moved in, and then they moved their 3 inches at their initiative step, ready to clamp melter bombs to the Spartan. Unbelievably, the Phalanx had 8 models that could attack the Spartan. They needed a 3 to hit, and if we have a quick look at the dice rolls, look at that, only 2 managed to hit. That was unbelievable. Despite the appalling hits on that Spartan, the penetrate roll was far more successful, getting 2 penetrating attacks on it with those melter bombs, and thankfully the Phalanx rolled 2 5s, which exploded the Spartan. The Justarian didn't take any wounds from the exploding vehicle, and they are not pinned because it exploded. So a really good result there for the Phalanx, but it could have just gone so badly so quickly. The only thing left to do now is to do the thrust moves for the rest of the army. At the end of the assault phase, the Magos and his unit in that compound managed a huge 5-inch thrust move. They've moved a little bit more central because they're anticipating that the Sons of Horus are going to take out that unit and then consolidate towards them. So they're just making sure that all their weapons will be in range, ready to bear down on them. This Phalanx unit did get an impressive 9 inches, and they have moved as far as where's Horus as they can. The unit here with the multi-melters didn't roll so well, and they got a 2 inches on their thrust move. Have no doubt that Horus will probably try and come and nibble on them a little bit. And then finally on the end here, the other Phalanx unit also rolled a 9. You know, this may force Sullivan to make some decisions. Where's Horus going? Where's that Praetor going? You know, so not a bad effort. Taking the Spartan out was key. It slows those Justarian down, and we're slowly nibbling away at Horus and his Justarian.
Sons of Horus, turn 4 movement. The Praetor has moved up to try and engage with the Phalanx to stop them scoring. The las cannon is stationary. On the shooting phase, he will try and take a pot shot at the Phalanx to alleviate any stress from the Praetor. Horus and his group of Justarian have moved up to try and engage the Phalanx. In the assault phase, they will try and charge. The Justarian, having had their Spartan destroyed, have popped out. They will now try and take revenge against the Phalanx that destroyed it and crush them entirely. Sons of Horus, turn 4 shooting. The Praetor opened fire with his bolt pistol at the Phalanx, but causing no wounds. The las cannon from the las cannon team opened fire on the Phalanx, but shot and caused 1 wound. Justarian have opened fire at the Phalanx in front of them, causing 2 wounds. Sons of Horus, turn 4, assault phase. All 3 units have gone uncharged into the phalanxes that are around the board. They have made successful charges with no wounds on the phalanx's overwatch. The Praetor, charging the phalanx at initiative 5, struck with 5 attacks, caused 4 wounds which killed a phalanx.
In return, the Phalanx struck back with 12 attacks, managed to cause 4 wounds, but the artificer armour of the Praetor held strong, and no wounds were caused.
The Praetor has won the combat by a difference of 3. The Phalanx are stubborn and have passed their leadership test. The combat continues. Combat between Horus, Justarian and the Phalanx. First to strike is at initiative 4 with the lightning claws. 16 attacks, 9 hits, 4 wounds, which killed 2 Phalanx.
Next to strike at initiative 2 was the Phalanx. Only 4 of them could make contact with the enemy, which means there was 8 attacks, causing 4 hits and 4 wounds, but the Justarian plate was far too strong, and only 1 wound went through onto a Justarian with a lightning claw.
So the Justarian with the Power Fist at initiative 1 struck with 3 attacks with 2 hits, 1 wound. The Phalanx was at 1 wound already, thus finishing the Phalanx off. Horus struck with Worldbreaker at initiative 1. Horus had 6 attacks on the charge. Thanks to Sire of the Sons of Horus, I gain the ability to roll D3 attacks, but I rolled 1, taking him to 7 attacks total. Despite the 7 attacks, Horus only hit 4 times. Thanks to Worldbreaker for being strength 10, he killed 2 Phalanx. Horus has won the combat, but due to the Phalanx's stubbornness and the fact that they passed their leadership, they are remaining in combat. The Justarian have attacked on the other side of the board against the Phalanx. The Lightning Claw at the initiative of 4 has swung first. The Justarian had swung with 3 attacks, hitting on 2, but failed to cause any wound. The Primus Medicae, with 3 attacks at initiative 4, struck with the Power Maul, causing 2 wounds, killing the Phalanx on its last wound.
Next to strike at initiative 2 were the 7 remaining Phalanx, 2 attacks each, so 14 attacks, 11 hits, which was unbelievable, and they managed to cause 2, 4, 6, 8 wounds. Unfortunately, the Justarian plate held and no wounds were caused.
So next to strike were the Justarian with the Chain Fists and the Power Fists, with 18 attacks, 12 hits, 9 wounds. That was enough to kill 3 Phalanx. The Justarian have won the combat by a difference of 9. However, the Thalax are stubborn and have passed their leadership test. This will lock up the Justarian in another turn of combat. Sons of Horus, end of turn 4. The Justarian have gone into combat. This is where they shine, and they have pretty much annihilated the Thalax that they've encountered.
Mechanicum, turn 5 movement. This is the last turn for the Mechanicum and the last ditched attempt to try and fend off the Sons of Horus and score some victory points. On this end of the board, there is no doubt that the Justarian will wipe that Thalax unit out, and that they will consolidate back into their own deployment zone and score themselves 3 points. So the Justarian will be on 3. The Thalax with the Magos have pretty much stayed stationary. Well, they've moved forward a little bit to bring their photon thrusters to bear on that lone member of the las cannon team, but they will stay safely in their own deployment zone and score themselves 3 points, tying the Sons of Horus and the Mechanicum. This unit has pushed over as 6 inches as much as possible, and they are trying to get into no man's land to score 7 points for that. 5 points for no man's land. But even with a 12-inch thrust move, that rearmost Thalax will not be able to get within no man's land. So that's a real shame there. Combat between Horus and the Justarian, they will wipe out that Thalax unit. And then they will need to make a decision. Do they try and move as far as they can into the central deployment zone of the Mechanicum to contest that objective, and then the Mechanicum will not score 3 points? That means the Mechanicum will, the Sons of Horus will be winning 3-0. Or will they try and pursue the other Thalax unit and wipe them out? There's a lot of ifs and buts. The plan for the unit on top of that hill will try and take out this lone las cannon marine. I cannot damage the siege breaker with him, which is a shame. I'd love to have taken that unit out, because if we could and we killed a Praetor in combat, then we would claim the enemy deployment zone for 7 points and the Mechanicum would win the game. At the moment, it's really hard to work out who is the winner or who is potentially the winner. I honestly think, though, the Sons of Horus have got this, but the Mechanicum are fighting for their lives. Mechanicum, turn 4 shooting. The Magos and his Thalax unit on top of that compound have fired down with 6 photon thruster shots. 5 of them hit. The one of them that missed got hot and caused a wound on the Thalax, but it was enough to destroy the las cannon marine. It's worth mentioning as well that the las cannon marine and the siege breaker did go to ground. So we will see what happens there. But that will score me a point at the end of the game for destroying more units. Let's see what happens. No more shooting for the Mechanicum. This unit do not have a target. They obviously can't fire into combat with Horus and his Justarian. The combat over there with the Praetor and the Thalax, of course, can't shoot. And that's all I've got. All we have to do now is just take the beating from the Justarian and Horus and his Justarian unit. Hopefully, though, we can win combat against that Praetor. Mechanicum, turn 5, assault phase, last assault phase for the Mechanicum. Combat between the Praetor and the Thalax. The Praetor struck at initiative 5 with 4 attacks, but failed to wound the Thalax. They then struck back with 12 attacks, getting 10 hits, which was unheard of, put 8 wounds on the Praetor, and he did lose a single wound, which was brilliant. He did pass his leadership test, though, so it would have been nice to have swept him in combat or killed him outright, but it wasn't meant to be, but really pleased with that result. The next combat was Horus and his Justarian in combat with those 2 lonely Thalax. The Justarian armed with lightning cords had no problem ripping apart the Thalax. The unit then consolidated 6 inches into no man's land, and that will score the Sons of Horus 5 victory points. So really, really tense. So just a quick recap. Currently, the Sons of Horus have scored 5 victory points for no man's land, and the Thalax, despite there being a Praetor and a Siege Breaker in their deployment zone, they are the only scoring unit in that deployment zone, and that will net the Mechanicum 3 victory points. 7 victory points. So at the moment, the Mechanicum are winning, but it all hinges on the Mechanicum surviving this combat between the Justerian. And if they do, there will be 2 scoring units from each side in that point zone, and the Sons of Horus and the Mechanicum will not score points. It's an absolutely crucial combat. At Initiative 4, the Primus Medicae struck with his Power Maul, 2 attacks, 2 hits, 1 wound, but the Thalax made his Feel No Pain save. Also striking Initiative 4, the Justerian, armed with a Lightning Claw, had 2 attacks, but rolled 2 2s to hit, and therefore the Thalax have gone unnoticed once again. At Initiative 2, the 4 Thalax struck back with 8 attacks, getting 7 hits and 5 wounds, but only caused 1 wound on the Justerian in contact with the Thalax. It would have been really great to have at least taken one of those Power Fists or Chain Fists out of the mix, but we will brace and see if we can survive the Justerian attacks at Initiative 1. Next to strike at Initiative 1 was the Justerian armed with Chain Fist and Power Fists. They had 12 attacks, hit 11 times, wounded 8 times, and that was enough to kill 2 Thalax and put 1 Thalax on 2 wounds. Very lucky escape. We now just need to pass a leadership test for being stubborn, which they passed on an 8. That is fantastic news. I wonder if they can hold out for 1 more turn. That is the end of turn 5 for the Mechanicum. We have done everything we could possibly do to fend off the Sons of Horus. It's looking extremely dicey. The only thrust move I did was this Thalax unit just at the foot of this hill here, but they rolled a double 1. Sullivan will now need to decide if he wants to go after that unit for another point or if he wants to stay in no man's land for 5. It would be amazing just to take that Praetor out in the Sons of Horus turn 5. It's extremely close, and to work out the victory points is mind-boggling. So we're just going to play the last turn for Sons of Horus and work it out.
Sons of Horus, turn 5, last turn of the game. Horus has exited from the Justerian squad to try and engage the Thalax that are present. He will see about smashing them in combat. The Justerian have continued the combat with the Thalax, hoping to win the combat and then consolidate out and move towards the objective to claim more points. The Praetor is engaged with the Thalax, hoping to tie them up in combat. The Siegebreaker, having not done anything in the game, is now contributing to Last Man Standing. Sons of Horus, turn 5, assault phase. Horus is now trying to go up against the Thalax in the charge phase. He's hoping to get a 10-inch charge and absolutely smash them to smithereens. I'll roll now to see what I get on the dice roll. Failing. Failed, but I have fleet, so we're going to see how we do with this roll. Failed. On the other side of the board, the Primus Medicae, swinging with 2 attacks against the Thalax, managed to cause 1 wound. The Justerian, at Initiative 4, with the Lightning Claw, tried to strike, failed to hit against the Thalax, but failed to wound. 4 attacks back from the Thalax, 1 hit, failed to wound. The Justerian, at Initiative 1, with the Power Fist and Chain Fists, swung with 12 attacks against the Thalax, managed to wipe them out entirely, and then they rolled a 3 for consolidation. The Justerian have consolidated 3 inches back into their deployment zone, scoring 3 points. Final combat of the game, the Praetor hit with 4 attacks with his chainsword, managed to wound 1 Thalax in the process.
The Thalax then attacked the Praetor back into combat, but they failed to wound thanks to that 2-up Artificer save on the Praetor. The Praetor did win the combat, but because the Thalax are stubborn, they passed their leadership test. That is the end of the game. It's an incredibly close game, and we are now going to tot up victory points to decide the winner. That was Sons of Horus Mechanicum. I think you have to agree that that was a really tight game.
Definitely, yeah, very close.
Oh man, I'm exhausted after that game.
Yeah.
There was a lot of. I think the game is a demonstration on how Thalax can move around the board and stay out of harm's way. I found it very tough.
Yeah, I did as well. I mean, especially with how quick you were around the board, me trying to catch up with you, it did provide a difficult challenge.
Man, it was tough. I tell you what, Horus and his Justarian are super tough. But I knew early on it was key to get rid of that Spartan and that Levy as well, because those are two units that the army, or that particular army, struggles with quite a lot. But I was lucky to get the multi-melters and the melter bombs to bear. Although a 2-inch charge on a Spartan wasn't ideal, but we made it. Let's do the scores very quickly. It is extremely close. There is 1 point in it. We'll start with the Sons of Horus. Sullivan, you did an amazing job. You got no man's land.
Yes.
With the Justarian right at the end, with Horus breaking off to go after a Thalax unit. And that scored you 5 points.
It did.
Huge points.
Yeah.
You also cheekily scored your own deployment zone.
Yeah.
You know, that Justarian unit that came out of the Spartan, they didn't move around very much, but they wiped a unit out and then scored you a point at the end of the game. So amazing work there. So that took you to 8. And then finally, your last point was for last man standing. I think you had 2 more units left on the board than I did.
I had a bit more than you.
Yeah, you did. And which took the Sons of Horus to 9. And the Mechanicum have done a reasonable job, I have to say. It was only by an inch that I kind of got it in the end. I wanted to double check the Thalax were in their own deployment zone in the game, which they were by an inch, which was fantastic. So that scored them 3 points. They captured their own deployment zone. You know, the Magos and his unit didn't really move around very much. Magos was pretty terrible, but they secured that for 3 points. But the stars of the show have to be the Thalax unit that ended up in taking out the Leviathan, I think, and then they ended up in combat with that Praetor. And the rules state that to claim a sector of the battlefield, you have to have a scoring unit, and the enemy has no scoring units. And unfortunately, the Praetor and Siegebreaker are not scoring.
Yeah, would have been helpful, but they're not, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that netted the Mechanicum 7 for the enemy's deployment zone. +3 is 10. Final score, 10 points to the Mechanicum and 9 to the Sons of Horus. So one hell of a game.
Thank you.
Really great game.
Cheers.
Well played. Sullivan, we're going to start with Horus, the top man.
The big honcho.
Never took a wound.
No, he had his loyal bodyguards around him to protect him, make sure he didn't die. He did a pretty good job in making sure he didn't get a scratch on his face. But I found that the Justarian did their job protecting Horus.
I was expecting Horus to deep strike into the centre of the board. I tried to spread my army out as much as possible to push the Sons of Horus out to the peripheries of the battlefield, which kind of worked. Yeah. Particularly with the Spartan coming on such a far end. Yeah,
trying to sort of pincer you and trying to get Horus from one side and then the Spartan the other, and then just sort of going in the middle. But
if I'm honest though, that was the perfect tactic, because if the whole army had kind of deployed in one kind of area, I just would have moved away. But I had nowhere to go, so it forced me to split the army into 2, and it was just not enough firepower to bring you down.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the appalling rolling on my part, I caused more wounds through Gets Hot on those photo thrusters.
Honestly, they're unreliable, those weapons. The Mechanicum need to double check them.
But the reason why I take them is because the range. Strength 6 AP2 Lance with a -2 cover save at 48 inches is absolutely powerful.
It is long. It can reach.
Oh man, but it just didn't quite work. But you know, the Justarian were amazing.
They were. They did what they did, and they provided a very good sort of protection for Horus, and they made sure that they killed some robots.
Yeah, I didn't take many Justarian down, I don't think. I was probably only, I think I only got rid of half of Sons of Horus's squad.
Yeah, the Justarian are still standing strong, but a few have died, but they're, acceptable losses. So
I think that the key thing as well is, it took half of my army 2 turns to whittle 4 or 5 Justarian down
with a 2 wound model as well.
Yeah,
it is difficult.
They did so well. We know Justarian really well on the channel here. We've seen them in action. We know how powerful they are, and those 2 wounds are absolutely fantastic. So good.
With that and cataphracti as well.
Yeah,
they are tough.
I was relieved that Horus did not get his orbital bombardment off.
Yeah,
It just never happened.
I wish I could have done that in the game, but I didn't get around to it, unfortunately.
So lucky, because if that had hit one of the squads, it was just 2 to kill him outright. Strength 10, instant death on the Thalax, AP 2.
Twin linked.
Oh man, that would have ripped one squad in half. So, that might have been key. I'm not sure. But however, if you'd perhaps gone after the HQ squad, you might have only had 1 or 2 left. And it's easier to hide 2 Thalax than it is a unit of 9. So I perhaps might have scored the point still. It's tricky, I think.
It is.
A lots of what ifs, some buts.
Yeah, a lot during the game.
Yeah. I've brought back a Thalax because that's pretty much my army. I had Thalax and 1 Magos, and that's all really. But, the army can be really tricky. It can do really, really well, or it can do really badly. And if it gets hot, but it's the maneuverability that really makes it key. They were tooled up quite well. They had the Destructor, they had Melter Bombs, they had the Heavy Chain Blade for Strength 7 in close combat. A lot of points sink. I think it's about 550 points a squad. But they did all right. I can't complain. But, I kind of wish I'd taken some tanks.
That would have helped.
It would have
just
helped.
A bit. And my siege breaker would actually been useful.
Yes.
They would have had, the Royal Tank Hunter for the last cannons.
I was really surprised that I did not mince the last cannons in the first turn. I fully expected to wipe that squad out the first turn, and it actually took me 3 turns, I think.
Yeah, they took most of the brunt of the force.
I was not very happy about that.
What can we do?
But they did well, and I think your Praetor as well. We're used to seeing Praetors with Digilasers, Paragon Blade.
Kitted up.
But he was still good though.
Yeah, I mean, that 2-up save, if you can go into combat and hold people up, it does have an advantage to that. Not all Praetors have to have, the glitz and glamour of all the other upgrades. You can just buy a plain sort of Praetor and it'll still be fine.
Yeah. He held his own on that flank at the end there, and it stopped the Thalax getting their AP1 and their rending lightning gun attacks, because if I'd had a bit more range, I would have taken that siege breaker out, would have got to that Praetor a little bit earlier, but he intercepted me and shut the shooting down effectively.
Yes, he did. Yeah, held you up.
Yeah, he would have cost 180, 200 points.
Yeah, close to that. Yeah,
and he shut down a 500 point model unit, which is huge.
Yeah,
absolutely huge. So great work there. I really enjoyed the game. I really hope you did too. It was an absolutely thrilling game. The elite of the Sons of Horus against just the massed ranks of mindless robots of the Mechanicum. I thought it was quite a cool game.
Black and red versus black and red.
Yeah,
interesting colour scheme that's going on. But it was a fun game. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Good. Now, I've taken a ton of photos from this game, so if you'd like to see those photos, please go to the Facebook page. I will post some photos on social media, as in Instagram, so please have a look at those. Now, when you talk about Sullivan, he's got a really awesome Sons of Horus army. It looks fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
My pleasure. And you've got some inspirations which you'd like to talk about?
Yes, I do. My first inspiration is Miles David for Little Legend Studio. Without him, my army will look terrible. He gives some great guides on his Patreon, and he gives some fantastic tutorials on how to paint armies. So I definitely recommend subscribing to him on his YouTube or his Patreon or on Facebook that he has. My second recommendation is a gentleman called Mick Clark for Bunyip Studio. He was the one who actually painted Horus. He is pretty good with what he does. I'd recommend his services as well if you want to get your stuff painted.
Great.
And then one of the clubs that I go to in Maidstone, well, not Maidstone, sorry, but in Raynham, around that area, is Wargamers Den. And they have quite a healthy 30k community there.
Cool.
Really nice guy there as well, Mark. Fantastic to chat to. So yeah, he's really good.
So is Heresy strong where you are?
It's Heresy strong. You've got the Heralds of Heresy as well in that area around
James,
sort of James
Scott Telford or Telford Scott?
Either way.
I can't remember which.
But yeah, no, it's a big, fairly big community in the sort of Kent area, Maidstone area. So yeah,
that's awesome. Good stuff. We've seen Little Legend Miles Davis on the channel. He was on the channel in January with his Blood Angels. So it was a really fantastic game against Jack and his Death Guard. So if you haven't seen that game, go back in January to see that. Now, if you've liked Sons of Horus versus Mechanicum, the channel is currently running a 6 linked game series between Alistair, another friend of the channel, and it's Mechanicum versus Sons of Horus, and it's a little escalation league. We started at 500 points, we've gone to 3k. This game will go out in July, and so far we've filmed 4 games from that series between Iris and I. So go back into June, check out the first game. The second game will be released in July. That's 1,000 points. So check those games out if you like the matchup for Sons of Horus Mechanicum. One final thank you to Sullivan, because he's put tons of effort in today, organising lifts and getting everything sorted to get here. So you've come a long way. So thank you so much for organising that.
Thank you for having me here.
Pleasure. Yeah, Elliot is a subscriber of the channel, and it was really lovely to have him on with his Sons of Horus. So, really keen to get well-painted armies and great guys on the channel to film games. And it's even awesome if it can come from the subscribership of the channel. So, if definitely. You'd like to come on the channel and feature in a game, please get in touch. We'd love to have you on. That's all we've got to say. I've really enjoyed today.
Thank you, I have as well. Thank you.
Good.
Cheers.
It's a long day, but it's worth it. Good.
Yes.
We will see you in the next game.